So this is my third presentation in skills development in Adobe. So here are my skills audit forms. So on the left is my old one and on the right is my new one. So originally I was going to focus on transitions in more depth this week. However, I wanted to focus on photo effects in Photoshop instead because I found some really interesting YouTube tutorials that I thought would be useful for my grad project. So last week I looked into the different types of common transitions and their capabilities, the importance of editing transitions, and how to use them in Adobe Premiere using YouTube tutorials as a guide. So this week I'll be focusing on photo effects in Photoshop. I want to understand how to use the different tools in Photoshop. I want to be able to create an extremely effective image from scratch, understand how to overcome challenges along the way if there are any, and I want to feel confident in what I'm doing so that when it comes to my grad project I can apply these skills if necessary in a fast and effective manner. So how did I spend my 20 hours? I did online readings on websites, 5 hours, YouTube tutorials, 5 hours, editing clips, research into practice, 7 hours, and applying my learning to my grad project, 3 hours. So reflecting on my feedback from last week, I had good context of what I did the previous week, good breakout of my time, nice summary of transitions, good work on evidence of workflow. However, there were a couple things that were mentioned that I should change, including the line references for images that aren't my work and putting more time and effort into my practical work, so create more of a balance with the research side. My research. So to start off with, I read a couple websites on the importance of Photoshop and its uses so that I had a better understanding and insight of the software. And a couple of quotes that I pulled from these websites that I liked were the first two, which are Adobe Photoshop is one of the most powerful image editing tools in the world. And in a competitive job market, learning Photoshop skills can help to differentiate you from other applicants. So that shows the importance of learning Photoshop skills. And more specifically to do with layers, layers are by far the most important element of Photoshop. And in my opinion, they're one of the reasons many people throw their arms up in frustration. So I also read this online book and focused more into the specific tools of Photoshop, and here are a couple screen grabs from the book explaining certain tools. However, I found this very difficult to understand as it was quite text heavy and I'm more of a practical learner. So based on that, I went to go watch a couple of YouTube tutorials. So the first one was a frost effect in Photoshop and the second one was fire effect in Photoshop, both by the same person, and both videos taught me how layers work, how to use the screen blending mode, how to create textures using the filter gallery option, how to copy and paste layers above one another, Command J, how to work with creating new channels and use the render option to create clouds in the second video, how to work with render lighting effect to create different shades of lighting of the current texture you've just created. And the overall quality of these videos was really, really good. The first video had over 1 million views and the second one had over 600,000, so it shows that they've both been watched by a huge number of people and therefore really, really helpful. So during the pre-experimentation stage, I took a couple images for my work just so I could use it and not have to refer back to someone else's images. So the first one was for the frost effect tutorial and the second one was for the fire effect tutorial. And here's my editing process. So the first video was pretty straightforward, allowing me to get to grips with the tools, and this is my finished product of the frost hands. And here's also my second tutorial I did, which allowed me to perfect my skills in Photoshop but do a slightly higher degree as this was a more complex tutorial than the first. So the challenges I faced, so when I was creating the fire effect, I came across a disk is full notification, and I then googled how to overcome this, and I used my own software, Daisy Disk, to see where my available space was and where I needed to free it up. And from doing this, I successfully was able to then continue my project, and this is a finished product. So in terms of objectives that I overcame this week, so I was able to understand how to use the different tools in Adobe Photoshop, able to create an extremely effective image from scratch, understand how to overcome challenges along the way, and I now feel much more confident in what I'm doing, so I'd say I'm now at least a 5 out of 10. So relating to my grad project, so from researching more into Photoshop and the importance of it as a software, it will help me in the development of my grad project. For example, if I'm ever wanting to create an effect or an image for a brand in my client work, there are so many different things I'm able to do, if not what I've already made. As I want to focus on a travel or sports company, the frost effect and fire effect could both be appropriate to reuse on other images for posters, logos, etc. So my final thoughts. So regarding Photoshop, the possibilities it opens up are almost endless. I think what Abbott means by this is that Photoshop has so many incredible capabilities or tools that you're able to create almost anything you want if you put your mind to it. And next week I'll be focusing on GIF creation, and my current skill level is, I'd say, 0 out of 10, as I've had no previous experience in making GIFs. And here are my references. Thank you for listening.